Mia looked at me with a face full of curiosity. "I just do my usual work," she exclaimed in admiration when she saw my skills. "This is the only thing I can brag about. But I believe this is something no one else can replicate. I want to do a job that only I can do." I remember as a child watching a movie with my dad and excitedly talking about it. "My name is Scott, 28 years old. I work in a factory that makes tiny screws for precision machinery. When I was in the 4th grade, my loving father, who once took me to the movies, left my mother and me for a younger woman. I think it took about a month to realize he was never coming back. Next to me, I suddenly noticed my mother, sitting in shock. I thought to myself, even at that young age, this can't go on. That's when the next chapter of my life began. Seeing me trying to be a beat gave my mother the strength to carry on. In the neighborhood, there were rumors about my dad running off, and there were those who pitied us and those who mocked us. Neither was a problem, but what was troublesome were those who tried to take advantage of our situation. My mom was an old-fashioned lady, quiet, demure, and beautiful. She sews traditional dresses for a living and would sit for hours, moving her needle over the sewing board. Her meticulous work was famous, and because of her unique skills, she even got orders from out of state. Although she earned a decent income, it wasn't enough to pay off the debt my dad left behind. With so many people trying to take advantage of us, I couldn't help but think how awful adults can be, even at my young age. I began to make sure that my mother wasn't taken advantage of by other adults and lived my life at the same time. Because of me having a suspicious and mature gaze, adults would sometimes find me creepy. So, I felt the need to enter the workforce and grow up as soon as possible. After finishing middle school, I decided not to go to high school and instead got a job. Of course, my mom was against it, but this was something I couldn't budge on. I joined a well-known machinery parts manufacturing factory in town. It seemed that I was the first person in that company who had only completed middle school, and at first, I received many odd looks and sympathetic words which were pretty bothersome to me. The one who treated me like his own son was my mentor, Ken. Inside the factory, Ken was someone everyone looked up to. It seems Ken noticed my skillful hands right after I joined the company. Among the parts that are mostly mass-produced by machines, there are tiny screws that require a human touch before they can be delivered. Ken was in charge of these parts, and he declared that he would teach me this technique. I believe Ken protected me. Being someone who had only completed middle school and was often the subject of whispers or treated lightly, he gave me a technique that no one else could replicate. It was my trump card to survive in this company. Since my father disappeared with a younger woman, it was the first time I felt such an admiration for an adult. I won't forget that feeling. That Ken also retired last year after reaching the age of retirement. I'm the only one who inherited Ken's technique. There's a part, a small screw, that only I can make. Even though new machines and systems were introduced last year, there are still parts that require the human touch. The place that Ken made for me in the company seems unshakable, no matter what. At the end of March, staff reshuffle was announced and a new department head from the headquarters is set to join. He's a longtime elite from the headquarters, probably looking to take the next step in his career. It feels a bit off when a boss who's never worked in the factory before comes in. All talk, with no real understanding of how things work. We had such an incident before, and the plant manager went to the headquarters to complain. On his first day, the new department head gathered all of us, looked down from the stage, and went on and on about his ideas. About increasing productivity by a certain percentage, lots of detailed numbers and money talk. He used a lot of fancy words, but in the end, it just felt like he wanted us to work hard for his own career advancement. Out of the blue, he said, There's a middle school graduate among us, and I was taken aback. The department head went on about how middle school graduates aren't fit for this company, and how education reflects one's character. My co-workers in the factory chuckled, but the department head seemed oblivious. I'm the only middle school graduate in the company. Right from the get-go, in front of all the employees, he was putting me on the spot. I don't think I've done anything to be personally hated, but it's clear the department head has some animosity towards me. It put a damper on my day. Even when I'm a bit down, once I start my work, I get focused and it doesn't bother me anymore. Just like any other day, I was diligently doing my unique tasks. Then, the department head appeared. Seems like he was getting a tour from the plant manager. I couldn't ignore him, so I gave a slight nod. The department head ignored my gesture, picking up a screw I was working on as if it was something dirty. So you're Scott, huh? Heard you're the only middle school graduate in our company. You should just know that I don't go easy on anyone. I was irked by his arrogant tone. I'll do my best, sir. I didn't want to engage, so I just replied with a neutral phrase. The department head looked displeased. Maybe he wanted me to be more subservient, but that's against my principles. I'm not ashamed of being a middle school graduate. Typical. Middle school graduates don't even know basic manners. I graduated from a college you wouldn't even dream of getting into. That makes me someone of a higher status in society. You should be honored to be spoken to. Check your attitude. His shouting echoed through the factory. For a moment, everyone stopped their work. All eyes were on me, wondering what was going on. Seems like the department head is a pain in the neck. I sighed internally. Well, isn't it lively today? A laid-back voice echoed through the factory. Her voice has a slightly husky tone for a woman. Apparently, she's got that from drinking. I overheard her joking about it with colleagues. Her name is Mia. She's in charge of the system that runs this factory. They outsource the system, so she visits the factory a few times a week. She has jet black, long hair, and fair-skinned. Her black-rimmed glasses are her trademark. She wears high heels and a long tight skirt as a suit. The skirt has a deep slit in it. She's completely changed my image of a system engineer. Here comes Mia. I swear the boss's tongue is sticking out. I'm Mia, the system engineer. You're the boss, right? Mia greets the boss. It seems she hasn't forgotten her manners as a professional. With Mia's arrival, the boss seemed to forget all about me and chatted with her, looking all smitten. Responding casually, Mia says, "Let's discuss this over there," and takes the boss away from me. Relieved, I watch their backs as the three of them head towards the office. As Mia walks away, she waves at me over her shoulder. I can't help but chuckle, thinking I owe her one now. The boss didn't show up in the factory in the afternoon, probably went back to the headquarters. The factory manager seemed stressed, murmuring, "A real pain in the butt came today." Finish time came, and all the machines were shut down. I did my final check, then wrapped up my day. Just as I was leaving the factory, I saw Mia chatting with other co-workers, having a good time. Most of the conversation was about horse racing. Apparently, there's a big race this weekend, and everyone was buzzing about how they'll place their bets. I respect Mia as a systems engineer, but I can't help but disdain her fondness for gambling. Of course, I understand it's due to some unresolved issues with my father's past, but it's hard for me to shake my strong aversion to gambling. Always gambling, always talking about horse racing. Normally, I'd let it slide, but I was already a bit irked due to the boss showing up, and I couldn't hold back. I immediately regretted my words, but once they were out, there's no taking them back. "Excuse me, you looking for a fight?" Mia glared at me with her almond eyes after my off-putting comment. She was the first to snap, and the others tried to calm her down. Gambling's no good, right? And horse racing's the prime example. Well, it was exactly it for tat. Today, I completely forgot about the help I had received and snapped back at her more sharply than I intended. You've never even been to a racetrack, let alone placed a bet. Don't act like you know everything and trash talk it. It's lame. Mia leaned in close, glaring at me with an upward gaze. The soft scent of her perfume wafted to my nostrils. It brought back memories of my ex-girlfriend out of the blue. I think I dated Lillian for about 5 years. She was the one who started the relationship, and she was the one who ended things. I believe I was about to be 21 at that time. It was Lillian who was assigned to the factory office from the headquarters. I remember her long brown hair, neatly curled, always looking pristine, adding a touch of glamour to the office. Lillian was 3 years older than me. At first, she acted like a big sister, always reaching out to me, which I found a tad annoying. But gradually, I found myself looking forward to her calling out to me and was surprised at my own feelings. Whenever she came to watch me and Ken work on the screws, she'd exclaim, "Wow, that's amazing," and that's when I began to open up to her. Being praised felt really good. I think that alone is a good enough reason to let someone in. The perfume Lillian wore and the one Mia is wearing now. I believe it's probably the same. It might be what I'm a little put off by Mia. On the day Lillian and I broke up, she wore that same scent. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Mia's voice pulled me back to reality. While I was lost in thought, the conversation with Mia seemed to have moved on quite a bit. "Clear your schedule for Sunday. I'm coming to pick you up from your apartment." "Huh, what?" Before I knew it, it seemed I'd made plans with Mia. I exclaimed in surprise, a bit dumbfounded. "Pinky promise. If I lie, I'll owe you big time." Pinky's locked. Suddenly, my hand was grabbed and Mia's pinky finger aggressively intertwined with mine. The pink earring on Mia's slender finger felt a tad cold. "Don't run off on me." Saying that, Mia walked away from my side. She jokingly said to her colleagues, "Going on a date with Scott this Sunday," and laughed. As promised, on Sunday, Mia showed up at my apartment. From the apartment windows, a few familiar faces peeked out, teasingly calling out to me. I quickly hopped into Mia's car to escape. "Morning. Did you bring the money?" The first thing she said, to which I replied, "I don't gamble." Mia looked at me with a side eye, grinning mischievously. In her free time, Mia dressed casually. Slim fit jeans with a hot pink t-shirt. She wore a light gray hoodie over it. She looked a bit younger than when she's at work. One thing worth noting: her driving was aggressive and pretty bad. As I got into the car, she warned, "Brace yourself, I'm the worst driver." She wasn't lying. By the time we reached the racetrack, I believe my nerves had been significantly frayed. Felt like a long roller coaster ride, didn't it? I couldn't help but shoot Mia an annoyed look. You don't stay on a roller coaster for that long. To my remark, Mia laughed. True that. The racetrack, my first time there, was much more beautiful and pleasant than I imagined. Probably because of the vast open view. And not just old-timers, but many young folks were there too. Seemed like some folks just came to photograph the racehorses without betting. Mia led me to a spot where the race could be seen clearly for the first race, without buying any tickets. Watch closely. Seeing a horse race for the first time, I was genuinely moved. The beauty of the racehorses, the power of their hooves. The jockey's determination chasing after their horse right before the finish line. And the loud cheers and sighs coming from the stands as they crossed the finish line. Maybe I got caught up in the excitement of the racetrack. All these jockeys, they're all quite good looking, you know. I think it's the face of a true competitor. In the winner's circle, Photos were being taken of the winning horse and the jockeys. Everyone was smiling joyfully. I heard a jockey gently pat the horse's snout, saying, "Thank you." Some jockeys die from falls. It's life-threatening for them. Of course, the horses are also risking their lives racing. Some even collapse and die right after crossing the finish line. Mia, with a serious expression, told me, "It's narrow-minded to only focus on the gambling aspect. The exhilaration of crossing the finish line first is something truly irreplaceable." The feeling of exhilaration when crossing the finish line first seems irreplaceable. After hearing that story, I watched another race. Seeing a jockey use every part of their body to push their horse to the finish line left me speechless. I thought it was truly noble and beautiful. I'm sorry, I think I've been narrow-minded. My ex-girlfriend used to tell me I had tunnel vision. While eating some pasta for lunch, I apologized to Mia. Engrossed in her horse racing newspaper, Mia suddenly looked up at me. "Hut, isn't that the boss's wife? I've heard rumors about her. She used to date a guy who only finished middle school." Hearing Mia's words took my breath away. I had heard through the grapevine that Lillian had gotten married, but I had no idea it was to the boss. I knew it but never realized how ignorant I was with office relationships. Maybe those who knew about my past with Lillian didn't want to tell me out of consideration. Moreover, Mia told me they were currently separated. Having dealings with both the headquarters and the factory, Mia is knowledgeable about what is going on in our company. The boss's persistent attempts to annoy me might have to do with it. Being pestered by her ex's husband, huh? Mia shrugged, rolling her eyes. I let out a sigh. The boss never stopped bullying me. During morning assemblies, he wouldn't mention my name, but he wouldn't forget to mockingly say, "That middle school graduate." It was as if being a middle school graduate was a cardinal sin. There were times when he even seemed to deny my very character. My colleagues, clearly frustrated by the boss's blatant behavior, sympathized with me. Then, an incident occurred. On that day, I had taken a paid leave to visit my mom back home after a long time. I was notified that a machine at the factory went haywire, so I rushed back. I was the one who did the final inspection last night. There shouldn't have been any issues. When I arrived at the factory, the manager, the department head, greeted me. The moment he saw my face, he yelled, "You damn fool," and came charging at me. "I'm sorry, can you please tell me what happened?" I apologized, bowing to the department head. The department head, however, didn't seem willing to accept my apology, continuing to shout at me. "That's why I can't stand middle school graduates. You're a nuisance. Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused to the company? You are fired." Fired. The department head insisted that I was to blame for the incident. And just as he said, I was swiftly let go. Without a chance to explain or even identify the root cause, axing me seemed to be the resolution to the incident. To anyone looking, it was a strangely abrupt solution. Suddenly jobless, my life took a turn for the worse. I had been working hard ever since finishing middle school. It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, and my life spiraled into disarray. Leaving the dormitory, I moved into a cheap apartment, becoming a recluse with no energy to venture outside. It was on a Saturday morning when my apartment door was banged on loudly. "Hey, let's go." I recognized the voice from behind the door. It was Mia's. I was surprised when Mia came to visit my apartment. As I opened the door, Mia gave a cheeky grin. "Let's hit the racetrack." Saying that, she grabbed my hand. In the clothes I had on, without even shaving, I was dragged off to the racetrack. The track was less busy on Saturday than on Sunday. I took a deep breath as I looked out over the turf. The expansive view made my heart feel lighter. "Maybe I'll buy a betting ticket today. Can you show me how?" Hearing my words, Mia nodded with a smile. That day, thanks to beginner's luck, I hit big and treated Mia to a barbecue dinner. "You look good with that stubble." She reached out across the table, her slender fingers grazing my scruffy chin. I gently held her hand, placing a kiss on her palm. Mia chuckled, looking tickled. "Thanks for coming. You move surprisingly fast. I might like that about you." I think that was the moment I finally accepted the subtle affection I had felt from Mia. But the happiness was short-lived. Feeling a weight off my shoulders, I invited Mia to my apartment. She nodded with a joyful look. But as we approached my place, we froze at the sight of someone waiting for me. Just from the silhouette, I recognized her immediately. It was Lillian. "Lillian, why?" Upon hearing my voice, Lillian looked up and suddenly embraced me. She kept repeating "I'm sorry" through her tears. Without thinking, I wrapped my arms around her. "I'm sorry, Scott. It's because of me. He was causing trouble. He was always jealous of you. He knew I couldn't get over you." Lillian's unexpected words left me stunned. Her familiar perfume filled my nostrils. Even as I tried to pull away from Lillian, she held on tightly. I couldn't help but notice Mia's gaze. "You're Lillian, right? Aren't you being a tad bit self-centered with that story?" Mia, arms crossed, said in a cool tone while observing the scene between Lillian and me. In a low voice, Lillian asked me, "Who is she?" I blurted out, "A friend." That seemed to strike a nerve with Mia. "Oh, a friend, huh, got it. You two lovebirds can stay here and dwell on the past." With that, Mia stormed off. As much as I wanted to go after Mia, Lillian's grip on me was firm. "We can start over, right, Scott?" There were no tears left in Lillian's eyes. The day after Lillian's visit, I was jolted awake by a call from the CEO. I assumed it was about unemployment benefits, but when I picked up in a groggy voice, it was the CEO, which immediately woke me up. I was asked to come to the headquarters, and feeling I couldn't refuse, I headed there. Immediately, I was ushered into the CEO's office, and I felt nervous. The CEO's talk began with an apology to me. The manager, whom I'll call the department head, was also present, shrinking against the wall. Seeing that, I understood everything. According to the CEO, the system failure wasn't due to my negligence, but the department head intentionally caused it. The truth was revealed in a report from a colleague, Mia. It was the first time I learned that Mia had been working hard to clear my name. When the CEO told me, "I want you to come back," I was surprised at my own feelings. I thought I would be really happy to hear that, but when it was actually said, I didn't feel as pleased. Even when told that tasks only I can handle were piling up, it didn't resonate with me. "I'm not coming back." When I firmly said that, it felt like two versions of me were arguing inside. I don't know if my decision is right, but I wanted to be true to my feelings. Upon hearing my response, the department head fell to the ground. He went on his knees and bowed deeply, begging. He repeatedly said, "Please come back. I have no standing anymore." To be honest, I found it ridiculous. I declined the department head's plea. "It seems you have no regrets. All right, it's your life after all." The CEO said that with a disappointed smile. I realized once again how compassionate he was. I bowed deeply, expressing my gratitude, and said, "Thank you for everything up until now. I never imagined I'd leave the company this way, but I'm truly grateful to this company for shaping me into the professional I am." After leaving the headquarters, I felt relieved. Surprisingly, I felt ready to start something new. When I returned to my apartment, there she was again, Lillian standing at the door. Does she truly want to start over with me? After all, it was Lillian who broke up with me. Back then, I was adamant about working at the factory and kept refusing a position at the headquarters. Lillian grew tired of my stubbornness. She told me, A man without ambition is the worst, and those words had long pained me. It made sense when she married the highly ambitious department head. "You are here again. Just met your husband." I said that while taking out my apartment key. "He's been demoted. What a way to throw away his chances of promotion." Lillian's words were sharp, and I couldn't feel a shred of affection from her. Anyway, Lillian's arm wraps around mine. "You're returning to the company, right? They were making a big fuss because there's a part only you can make. The CEO was saying you're a very valuable employee." It makes sense, I thought. It seems Lillian's affection doesn't kick in unless there's something in it for her. That thought almost made me chuckle. Is it right to say she's true to her desires? So like her. "We're long done, aren't we? You were the one who ended it. Remember, saying I lacked ambition. Such a cliché line. Where's your ambition now, Lillian?" At my words, Lillian frowned. She pushed me away, as if throwing me aside. "I'm not going back to the company, and don't ever come looking for me again." I left those words behind as I opened the door to my apartment. As the door closed, I could hear the sound of Lillian's footsteps receding in the distance. Listening to her footsteps, I took out my cell phone. I scrolled through my contacts, looking for Mia's number. I hadn't reached out to her since our almost breakup last night. After a few rings, loud cheers came from the cell phone. "Score. Keep it up." It was lively. "What? I'm kinda busy right now." Mia's voice, sounding like she's shouting. "Thanks for the system report. I appreciate you clearing my name." I shout back, competing with the cheering sounds in the background. On the other end of the line, I thought I heard Mia chuckle. I gotta hang up. It's the main race next. Mia, always spending her weekends at the racetrack. But she's nothing like my father, who abandoned me. Wait, the words came out before I could stop them. Mia burst into laughter on the other end. "Don't be so anxious, we'll talk more later. I promise." Her words made me happier than I'd imagined. "Yeah, we'll talk later." I echoed Mia's words. And just like that, the call ended. I believe Mia's "we'll talk later" means our story continues. To look for a new job, I immediately reached out to my mentor, Ken. "I've met the woman I love. I'm looking for a job so I can propose." Ken, while laughing heartily, said, "Come work at my factory." I felt the beginning of a new chapter in my life. Mia would always be by my side. 6 months later, "You're the only one who can do it this way." Mia peeks at my work. At Ken's factory, I carefully handcraft every screw. Mia occasionally comes to watch me work. Encouraged by Mia's praise, I'd give my best. She'd look at me, eyes shining, and whisper, "I can't wait to marry a genius." I almost slipped up in my work. Being twisted around her little finger like this isn't so bad. I genuinely believe that,